guys, it's me again for Ethiopia. Yeah, here we go. As people have said to be living in Ethiopia for thousands of years, but the first well-known kingdom in Ethiopia rose in the 1st century AD, and by 100 AD, a kingdom called Aksum existed in what is now Ethiopia, as Aksum traded with Rome, Arabia and India. As Aksum became a Christian country in the 4th century AD, and in 642 the Arabs conquered Egypt, and in 698 to 700 they took Tunis and Carthage, and they soon controlled the coast of North Africa. Now, the Arabs being Muslim by this point, of course, and they converted the whole of North Africa to Islam, but Ethiopia remained Christian, but was cut off from Europe by the Muslim counterparts just across the Red Sea and all that. And in the Middle Ages, Ethiopia had flourished, with famous churches of St. George's was built around 1200, but in the 16th century, Ethiopia declined in power and importance, although it survived. And around this time, the Portuguese had reached Ethiopia by sea. And in 1848, the Emperor of Ethiopia imprisoned British subjects, and the British sent an expedition to rescue them. And as the British withdrew, but in the 19th century, Europeans were divided Africa up between themselves. Soon all of Africa was in European hands except for Ethiopia. The Italians then invaded Ethiopia in 1896, but they were defeated by the Ethiopians at the Battle of Adwa. And in 1923, Ethiopia then joined the League of Nations, which was the precursor to the United Nations. In the interwar years between World War I and World War II. And when Italy invaded Ethiopia in 1935, the Italians used poison gas, weapons like poisonous gas, which had been outlawed since World War I, as they overran Ethiopia. But in about 6 years later, the British came in and liberated them, giving Emperor Haile Selassie his throne back. But in 1974, the communists seized power in Ethiopia, as the emperor was later deposed and murdered, and led by Mengistu, the communists introduced the tyrannical regime, like all communists, a lot of communist countries seem to do, as they murdered thousands of their opponents, although resistance continued in Eritrea. They also caused forced deportations, and although Ethiopia suffered from a terrible famine during the communist era, the communist era did not last, as it was overthrown. The communist regime of Ethiopia was overthrown in 1991. In 1993, Eritrea became independent, and in Ethiopia a new constitution was introduced in 1994, and elections were held in 1995. And in the early 21st century, the economy of Ethiopia grew rapidly. Although Ethiopia remains poor, they're still optimistic, and the population today is somewhere around 105 million. Yeah. Moving on to language, Ethiopia has more than 80 languages spoken just within its borders, as they include like the official languages and other languages that may not be native to the country, as well as other native of countries as Oromo and Amharic are the two principal languages spoken within the country, and there is about 88 different languages that kind of came up in the 1994 census, and there are about 77 locally spoken tongues, and a huge percentage of the languages are spoken belong to the Afro-Asiatic family, which comprises of Cushitic and Semitic languages. And although the classification may be uncertain, the Ameritic languages are spoken, and yeah. And since that census in 1994, two have become extinct as such, while 86 are still living, and of which 5 are almost extinct, and another 8 are in danger of extinction. 14 are developing, 18 are vigorous, and 41 are institutional. In education, medium of institutions like universities and secondary schools, English may be spoken, and as well as foreign languages. And initially, America was a medium of institutions of primary schools, but they changed many regions within the country, which has far been replaced by other local languages such as Tigrinya and Oromo. And according to a census of Ethiopia in 2007, the first languages and largest are the Oromo, with about 24,930,424 roughly speaking, which is equivalent to about a third of the country, or 33.8, so it's just over a third. And Amharic with about 21,634,396 users, which equates to about 29.3% of the country's population at the time. Yeah, so then there's also Somali, which is also used, and a number of other languages. And after following the fall of Derg in 1991, the Ethiopian Constitution of 1995 allowed ethnic groups within the country the right to establish first language primary education systems and develop their various languages. And the decision marked a change in language policies, plus in place the country's previous government, as Ge'ez's script is a principal authority of the Ethiopian used in Ethiopia in regards to a writing system, despite other methods of writing being used in different communities in the countries over the years. Ge'ez is the current liturgical language of the Eritrean Orthodox, Tewahedo and Ethiopian churches. Moving on to the legends, as history and legends are tied together, it can be hard to know when legends end and history begins, kind of thing. And yeah, there's kind of a lot of saints, kings, spirits, monsters wandering the Asiatic seem to accompany you. Yeah. As Ethiopia's most famous daughter is said to be the most beautiful and alluring woman to ever live, but she had hairy legs and cloven foot like the devil, and her fame lasted 3,000 years, and in modern day Ethiopia she is revered as one of the founding figures of the nation, as well as a symbol of mystery in Africa's exotic corner, as is known as the Queen of Sheba. As there was kind of like said to be a knight, like in armour, going around on his white steed and all that. Then there's Axum, as Axum is built on legend, which say like maybe the Queen of Sheba really called the town's dusty street home, kind of thing. As there's still many questions, as the town has a vibrancy and continuing national importance, rarely found at any other ancient site, as pilgrims flocked in the thousands to pay homage to the great churches, and Ethiopians believe passionately in the Ark of the Covenant residing there. And there's also the small chapel of Mary of Zion. Then there's Gondar, and as in medieval Europe, there's rumours circulated that the fantastic Christian kingdom, led by a ruler named Prester John, and it said that in the palace Prester John was one of the crystal with roof of ebony, and every day 30,000 people ate from tables made of gold. And rumour kind of placed it in present-day Ethiopia, and that Prester John's capital was today's Gondar. Gondar. It's like, I love Lord of the Rings, but I'm not sure if Ethiopia does. But sadly, the rumours turned out to be false, as it may have turned out to be a collection of castles and palaces made of stone. But it was kind of said to be still in Ethiopia somewhat. Then there's Debre Damo, as North Ethiopia is full of kind of like the old monasteries that kind of creaky, and churches built on top of like crags and all that you wouldn't really dream of putting something on. And perched on like a needle of rock, the best known of the monastery is Debre Damo, founded by Abu Aregawai. And looking at the sheer mountainside today, you may wonder how Aregawai kind of climbed into the summit, but he's said to have a helping hand from God, and he knew that this was a fine place for a monastery, and he made a giant serpent lower its tail so that Aregawai was able to scramble up so he made a giant serpent. Scramble up the snakes back to the summit, and those giant snakes will be very happy, as monks haul visitors up the cliff face or wherever bit of rope. And the last of all is Lalai Bella, as it may not always be right to talk about the maze of churches in the rust-coloured rock of Lalebe. Born in a dream, as the most cynical visitor cannot help but look at the 12th century churches and ask how or why they were kind of built there. Also, that when King Lalibela was poisoned by his half-brother, the angels carried him to the first and second and third heavens. Here he was shown a city of rock-hewn churches, and God commanded him to return to earth and recreate what he'd seen. And many can be pleased with results, maybe even Queen of Sheba and all. And yeah, that is Ethiopia for you, and yeah, gonna say bye for now, and I'll see you all later. So yeah, bye for now.